Rev up your engines!
Well, if you've been shopping for a new car, I'm sure you have sticker shock. I just had a customer the other day come over, and they're having another kid, so they got a bunch of kids, and they thought, oh, we'll buy a brand new Suburban, right? So they go to the Chevy dealer, and a fully loaded Suburban was $86,000. I mean, people used to buy houses for that kind of money, right? Suburban is big, but you can't really live in the thing. It just gets to me that these corporations build these expensive things, and they just act like, oh yeah, people are going to buy them. They're going to spend $86,000 for a Suburban. And I think they've really lost touch with reality. Of course, that's what you expect from corporations. You know, they're dead from the neck up. They just make decisions on how can we make profit. We're going to make the bigger, more and more expensive things because that's where all our profit is, right? They talk about, and this is funny because it's a GM, Compressor, right? GM, their CEO, Mary Barr, says, we're going to be an electric car company. We're going to save the planet with electric cars, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, they're making their profit on gigantic gasoline guzzlers because that's who they make their profit on now. They're the most hypocritical people on earth. They're making all their money with these giant monster SUVs and trucks, and then they're talking like, oh, we're going to save the planet with electric cars. I mean, when this lady came over, she shows me what this thing was going to cost, 86 grand for a Suburban. You know, you can pay even more if you want to, but I think these people have lost touch with reality building these things. I guess a lot of it just stems from everybody's into this form versus function. What does it look like? And, oh, it's beautiful, it's big. Americans want big, big, big. And, oh, they can pay whatever they want. No, well, guess what? They can't. And eventually, there's going to be a glass ceiling where people aren't going to be buying these things anymore. And all these corporations are going to be sitting around, what happened? I don't understand. Why aren't people buying our vehicles? Oh, gee, maybe it was because you charge so much money for the things, nobody can afford them anymore. And it's only getting worse. They're raising them even more as we speak. And of course, the sad thing is when they raise the price of new vehicles, what does that do? So now the used car market is way back up again. It was starting to come down. Well, now it's way back up because people can't afford a new car. And if they have to get a car and they're going to buy a used car, guess what? They raise their rates because they said, well, the new one cost 86 grand, so I want 50 for my used one. It's a vicious cycle that's perpetuated by these people. So sad but true, the prices of new cars are still going up. They haven't started to come down. Inflation is going insane. Their pricing has gone insane. And even if you're trying to do like I always do, buying a used car, those prices have pretty much gone insane because they follow the price of new cars. And then companies like GM are shutting production down for a few weeks of trucks because they don't want to have too many trucks out there for sale. You know, they want you to buy them at a really high price. So, well, they don't have many of them. You got to pay a whole bunch of money for them, right? It's kind of disgusting what these companies are doing. So, I mean, like I've always said, if you can go and not buy one, take your time. Take care of your old ones. That's what I'm here for. Show you how to keep care of your old ones. Make them last as long as possible because they're not lowering prices anytime soon. Jaden Garlett says, Scotty, my truck has long-term fuel trim at minus 10%. What does it mean? Do I need to fix it? All right, okay. When it's minus 10%, it means that your truck is running a little too rich and your computer is subtracting 10% fuel. When your car's running rich and is not burning the fuel correctly, then the computer tries to make it run perfect by subtracting 10% fuel. So it has the fuel injector spray 10% less fuel. It can control how many milliseconds they fire. And of course, if they fire for less milliseconds, they spray less fuel. The pressure's always the same, so if they fire for less time, less fuel gets into the engine, right? So now there's a lot of things that can do it, and that's not too bad if it's an old vehicle. I see a lot of them that do that. It won't turn a check engine light on. It's got to be minus 20 or more for it to turn a check engine light on. If it gets good enough gas mileage, you might live with it, but I mean, it can be a mass airflow sensor, it can be dirty fuel injectors, it can be old fuel injectors, it can even be the ignition system not firing correctly. There's a zillion things that can do that. And if it runs okay otherwise, look at your short-term fuel trim. If the long-term is minus 10, but the fuel trim is a lot less short-term, I would just personally live with it. Xeris XD said, any best non-plug-in hybrid mid-size two-row SUVs you recommend? I get a RAV4, or get a Honda, the equivalent Honda. CR-V or whatever you happen to like. Those are the best ones out there, hands down. You can't argue. They can just run and run and run. You're going to pay more for them, but they're going to last so long. You don't have to think about hassles, breakdown, repair costs. They're just going to run and run and run. And yes, you're going to pay more for them, but you pay more for quality. You might as well, and then you can drive something forever. I've had people that, we're going to buy American, and they buy a Ford or a Chevy, and then every 5-6 years they fall apart and they got to buy another one. Where the people who bought an equivalent Toyota, 15 years later, they're still driving the thing down the road. So if you're looking long term, Toyota or Honda. Joseph Novotnik says, what do you think of a 2002 Chevy Tracker, 36,000 miles? Okay, they're kind of like the Suzuki Samurai type thing. They're okay little vehicles. 36,000 miles, nothing. They'd have to prove that was real being 2002. I don't know if I'd believe in it. I would want all kinds of paperwork and proof and the inspection reports for all those years to see, yes, that was real. It never had more mileage than that. I wouldn't overpay for it because it's kind of hard to get parts for those things. They could be fun little vehicles. You want a fun little vehicle for zipping around, and then they could be okay. They were a massive selling failure. They didn't sell that many of the stupid things. But don't overpay for something like that and be rather leery that that's the real mileage unless there's actual proof. And I mean big proof. Danielle DeLuca says, Scotty, what do you think about aluminum engines? Well, most engines are aluminum now, and a lot of people don't understand. People have been working on aluminum engines for a long time. The British had aluminum motorcycle engines decades and decades and decades ago in the 1940s, and some of them even earlier than that. They started out as racing engines because they weigh less. The less weight you have, the faster you can race around, right? Now, aluminum dissipates heat quite well. Of course, the thing is, aluminum engines can't take overheating. A cast iron engine could take overheating. Just keep running. We were kids, we had big old Ford, Chevy, iron blocks, cast iron heads, right? And you could overheat them, and then they stop running, then you just let them cool down, put water in and oil, away you go, and they'd still drive. You would destroy an aluminum engine doing that way. Aluminum is softer. You could get like an aluminum head from an engine. You could put it in a stove in your house. Put the stove on like 300 degrees. And then you could get a little hammer and a vise. You could bend parts of it because it's softer. It's just softer. And being softer, it will wear out faster if you don't change your oil. Dirty oil is friction. It will eat into the aluminum room. So you do have to maintain an aluminum engine very well. But if you do, I've got Toyotas, 250,000 miles, they're aluminum. I change the oil all the time. They don't have any problem. But you got to get a quality aluminum engine and take care of it if that's the case. 123 Rockchild says, Scotty, what's a good tire compressor to buy to use at home? You're not going to be doing an insane amount of work. I've got one that I've been using for years now, and I bought it at Harbor Freight Tools, right? And I paid like $150 when it was on sale, and it still works fine. Use it all the time. It's a great compressor. It's not outrageously powerful, but you don't need any insane thing. Now, if you're going to use it at home and doing serious work, you want one that has at least, say, a minimum of 12-gallon air tank. If the tanks are too small, they won't hold enough air. So, you're going to use air tools, air wrenches, take tires off. You want a decent one. The one I have is like a 3-horsepower engine, and it's like 15 gallons. I paid about $150, and it works perfectly fine. But you don't want to buy a really cheap one because they don't hold up. But I found out these Harbor Freight ones, they last pretty long. Mine still working strong. I've had it for like 5 years, and it still works perfectly fine. Gary Driver says, 2000 Toyota Solara, 51,000 miles. Is it worth $11,000? Well, I'd never pay $11,000 for a 23-year-old car. That's not a collector's item. I mean, they're good cars if they could absolutely, positively prove that it only had 51,000 miles on it. Yes, it's probably going to be a really good car. But on the other hand, it's a 23-year-old car. The rubber's going to be rotten. All kinds of things can eventually go bad. Those things, a lot of times the power steering racks went out. There's, $1,500 to $2,400 replacing it with a brand new one that isn't going to leak for years. So I'd never pay that kind of money for something that's that old, just because 23 years is a lot of age, and a lot of stuff's going to start falling. The seats are probably going to crack, especially if it's got leather seats. So it's too pricey for me. If the mileage is real, it's a good car. But that old, you never know what's going to break on a car that's 23 years old. But Desundra says, what's more annoying to you? Someone slow in front of you or someone fast and obnoxious behind you? Well, it depends where you are, right? Let's say you're on a big highway. If somebody's fast behind me, fine. I'll just get out of the way and they can pass me, and then they're out of sight. Hey, and then maybe I'll see a wreck in front of me and get to some excitement watching that, right? Slow in front of me is the worst if you're not on a big highway where you can easily easily go around them, because then it creates a problem. If you're on, say, some hilly country roads and you know you got 30 miles to go and there's no towns in between and it's double line the whole way and you can't get by them, that is the most obnoxious thing on earth. You know, please, people, go at least the speed limit, okay? So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.